I'll tell the story over the mic. The conference committee did, and I wrote to Don DeLillo requesting his presence, since I knew there was going to be, based on my own interest, there was going to be a panel on Libra. So I wrote to him, and he very graciously, if you know anything about Don DeLillo, and sort of that is actually known as missing authors, he's somewhat reclusive. He very kindly wrote back and said, thank you, but I'm in my 70s and I'm doing my best to withdraw from public life. So unfortunately, he is not here. We did not pursue Oliver's film. My guess is that his speaking fee would have been substantial. Anyway, I guess we should probably get started. This is the panel, and I should know the title by heart. Based on a true story, factional representations of JFK in literature and film. For those of you that went to the Beat American Poetics panel yesterday, there was some explanation, because this is an interdisciplinary conference, on what certain terms mean, and I'm guessing that there might be a couple of people in the room that have no idea what the word factional is. So I thought I would give a very quick and dirty literary history. Since Sir Walter Scott, the historical novel has been a recognized literary form. However, perhaps because we Americans like to do things differently, this genre took a turn when Truman Capote published his quote-unquote nonfiction novel In Cold Blood in 1966. Although Hayden White, who's a historian, asserts that the difference between history and literature, quote, resides in the fact that the historian finds his stories, whereas the fiction writer invents his, there is some debate. Immediately following Capote, authors were free to take liberties with the mixing of these disciplines, such as Norman Mailer in The Armies of the Night, History as a Novel, The Novel as History, which was in 1968, or new journalist Hunter S. Thompson in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, 1971. The results are variously known as fictional biographies, novel biographies, historiographic metafiction, or faction, which is part fact, part fiction. What is left is based on a true story, a phrase that is nearly ubiquitous these days in film, TV, and the printed text. This phenomenon has led William H. Gass to lament in his essay Autobiography, the techniques of fiction infected history. The materials of history were fed the novelist's greed. It is now difficult sometimes to tell one from the other. It is now difficult to find anyone who wants to bother. And with that, I will turn to our first presenter, who is Lucia Sempian. She is a PhD candidate at the University of Heidelberg. Her dissertation is entitled The American Camelot, the Kennedy Myth Through a Fictional Glass. She has been the recipient of 2 fellowships that have allowed her to conduct research at the John F. Kennedy Institute in Berlin and the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum. The title of her paper is Libra and JFK, Truth or Dare. Please welcome Lucia Sempian.
Thank you for the presentation. Before I start, I'd just like to say that this paper is part of my MA thesis and constitutes the starting point of my preoccupation with and study of fictional representations of JFK. So the title of my paper is Libra and JFK, Truth or Dare. The purpose of this paper is to trace the way in which the Kennedy assassination has been handled by Don DeLillo in his novel Libra and by Oliver Stone in his movie JFK. I start from the assumption that they approximate the notion of truth differently and consequently rely on different premises to shape their message. I do not intend to draw a comparison between the 2 accounts at the level of subject matter, characters, or technique, but I discuss how authorship has been conceived of and challenged both by critics and by the authors themselves. In an author's note placed at the end of the novel, DeLillo states beyond any shade of doubt that Libra is the product of imagination. Even though it is well researched and makes use of several events and characters that belong to the historical record, the novel does not claim for itself the status of a factual narrative. DeLillo defined his purpose as trying some relief from the burden of doubts and suspicions that have been piling up ever since November 22nd, 1963. The kind of truth Libra produced and continues to produce with every reading of it is fictional truth. Libra is true in itself and to itself, and its explicitly declared purpose and nature. It makes use of literary conventions to attain and convey the effect of verisimilitude. At the same time, it has a metafictional dimension, thus making readers aware of the status of an artifact and of the sensitive relationship between literary and historical discourse. Whether one defines verisimilitude in a traditional manner as the correspondence between the imagined world and the real world, or as the internal cohesion and coherence of the universe called into being by a creative mind, thus favoring the more recent textualist approach to narratology, Libra meets both descriptions equally well. Oliver Stone's JFK, on the other hand, poses some difficulty in the way it defines authorial intention. Although it blends fact and fiction by mixing real and invented events and characters, and by juxtaposing real and imagined footage, JFK contains no disclaimer that might shed some light on its nature. As a consequence, it raised a storm of criticism from historians and movie critics alike. Oliver Stone responded by calling his movie a counter-myth to the Warren Commission report, but has never fully explained what he understands by mythological truth. Even though he admitted that he had altered facts and used composite characters, he refused to describe his movie as fiction because that would have disqualified it in the eyes of the